One of the most appealing aspects of Miraculous Ladybug, at least for me, has always been the lore. While seemingly a silly cartoon about two love-struck idiots dancing around each other endlessly in a love square, the superhero aspect is honestly pretty interesting. Instead of obtaining their powers in a tragic backstory or being an alien or mutated human, our superheroes get their powers from magic jewelry. And while that in itself isn't unique since we already have franchises like Green Lantern, what is unique about this is the usage of Kwamis.
What are you, and how do you know my name?
I'm a Kwami, and my name is Tiki. Now just let me explain.
For those somewhat unfamiliar with the show lore, Kwami are the little chibi-looking animal sidekicks that power the miraculous jewelry, allowing their users to transform. So Adrian uses Plagg to transform into Cat Noir, and Marinette uses Tiki to transform into Ladybug. It's a two-part system, and one cannot work without the other. For example, Marinette cannot transform if Tiki isn't around to power her miraculous for transformation, just as Tiki will be unable to transform Marinette without a way to transfer and concentrate her power. The magic jewelry serves as a bridge to lend the power from Kwami to Holder, and they wouldn't be able to do so without it effectively serving as a middleman. We know that the Kwami themselves can use their powers while not inside of the miraculous, but it often has disastrous consequences because the power cannot be easily controlled. Let's just say that in canon, there is a miraculous-related reason for the dinosaurs going extinct and Atlantis sinking into the ocean.
You are way too dangerous without an owner.
Dangerous? Me? How so?
Does the disappearance of Atlantis ring a bell with you?
I'd had too much cheese.
Dinosaurs!
Oh, yeah, okay, no, I did go too farther.
On a more technical note, Kwamis are classified as divine and celestial beings in the show lore and in the comics. A divine being is usually classified as a god or immortal being, which is pretty in line with what we've seen from them so far. The word Kwami is also speculated to be a combination between the words Quantic and Kami. Kami meaning god in Japanese, and Quantic meaning the homogeneous function of two or more variables having rational and irrational coefficients. In this instance, the variables would be the Kwami, the miraculous, and their holders. And while that makes sense, it's never been confirmed that that's how these creatures actually got their names. However, I do think it's pretty on point. Each has one idea or principle that they're in control of or born from the idea of. So, for example, Mulo is the Kwami of multiplication, and Nuru is the Kwami of transmission. Usually the animal that they bear a resemblance to is more a symbolic gesture than it is anything else, like Plagg being a black cat, since black cats are usually associated with bad luck, or Waze being a turtle because they have a shell that keeps them safe from predators. According to the canon, a Kwami doesn't have parents. Instead, they are created when an abstract idea or emotion comes into existence. Tiki was the very first Kwami, since she is the Kwami of creation and was born when the universe was. While we don't know how soon after Plagg came into existence, it's implied that he was also one of the first, since creation cannot exist in a balanced way without destruction. This also means that canonically, nearly every feeling or idea has a Kwami with a power based around it. Sort of interesting to think about, and honestly not that far-fetched considering we have Kwamis like Long, who embodies the abstract idea of perfection. And because they don't have parents, they also don't really have birthdays. They instead have something called a cycle, which is the closest equivalent. During a Kwami cycle, which only comes every few thousand years, they can telepathically connect with each other by singing inside of the Miracle Box.
What is that?
That's not Nuru. It's Hawkmoth.
Before being bound to their miraculous, the Kwami would travel across the universe and explore it, but they were always unable to interact with other living beings that they encountered as they did so. Much like Kwami cannot be seen by technology or photographed, they couldn't be seen by the naked eye at one point either. Eventually, an unnamed mage created the Miraculous. They were powered by magical jewels that allowed the Kwami to manifest in a physical form and be seen by mortal beings. In return for the ability to finally be seen and interact with the non-Kwami that they wanted to, they could grant powers to their holders. This is how the miraculous superheroes were created, since the Kwami wanted to help and interact with their newfound mortal companions. They then began a mission to travel around the Earth with their holders, doing good and improving life for the inhabitants. However, this system didn't come without its unfair drawbacks. While most of the relationships between Kwami and Holder that we see are positive, it also has the potential to be abusive, unbalanced, and unsafe. While Dusu seems to have a positive or somewhat neutral relationship with Natalie, the same cannot be said for Nuru, Gabriel's Kwami. Because the Kwami are magically bound to their Miraculous, they're also forced to obey the every whim of their holder. We've seen in the show that Gabriel can control Nuru's actions, and even goes so far as to prevent him from talking entirely at one point simply by verbally forbidding him.
From now on, you won't be able to communicate at all.
But Master...
It was a joke, Nuru. I'm not that cruel.
Thank you, Master.
Identities are also not allowed to be revealed by the Kwamis, as bubbles come out of their mouths instead if they try. This rule is only applicable if the person or Kwami who they're talking to doesn't know of their identity, otherwise they're allowed to say it to them. It's also been shown that transformations can be forced or at the very least heavily influenced, mostly based on Plag when he's being dramatic about not having the time to finish his cheese.
Claws out. That's how you transform.
Got it! Plag, claws out!
Oh, wait, I haven't finished explaining!
The magical property of the gems force the Kwami's compliance both literally and figuratively, and has the potential of being very easily abused when in the wrong hands. In fact, it being easily abused is the reason the show exists in the first place, since it's the main conflict with Hawkmoth abusing the power of transmission that Nuru gives him. The poor butterfly obviously isn't a willing participant in Gabriel's attacks on Paris, only really showing just how unbalanced the relationship between a holder and Kwami truly is. Adding to the holder having more power in the relationship, guardians are trained from a very young age to both distribute and oversee to the overall care of both the Miraculous and their Kwami. While Master Fu and the currently unnamed holder of the Native American themed box are the only old school guardians that we've been introduced to so far, it was explained in the episode Feast that there was once a whole temple full of guardians and other miracle boxes. Because Fu was forced from his family and forced to train when he was only a child, out of frustration he created a senti monster from his gluttony using the Peacock Miraculous, which caused the destruction of all but one box and the grimoire. He didn't mean for the destruction to occur, of course, but he fled out of fear rather than trying to get rid of his creation. In the process, he lost both the Butterfly and Peacock Miraculous, which were later found by Gabriel and Emily Agreste while on a trip to a currently unknown location. This means that outside of the Chinese Zodiac theme box that is seen in the show, there's potentially thousands of others that have since been recovered. When Ladybug and Cat Noir defeated the senti monster that devoured them over 100 years ago, everything was restored with her Miraculous Ladybug ability. This includes members of the Order of the Guardians, which were once destroyed by the gluttonous monster. Guardians need to undergo this training from a very young age, since they hold the most power and responsibility out of anyone who has involvement with the Miraculous. They learn a secret language that only Guardians are allowed to understand and know, that way all of the secrets are kept out of the wrong hands and within the grimoire. This works somewhat effectively, since Gabriel had also found the grimoire with the Butterfly and Peacock, but was unable to translate any of it. And because of a rule that prevents the Kwami from knowing the secrets about their own Miraculous and the untapped potential they have and how to reach it, he wasn't able to force Nuru to tell him either. The information that the book stores is vital, since it gives information on how to power up the Kwami and how to potentially fix a damaged or corrupt Miraculous. A damaged Miraculous is shown to have negative or potentially fatal side effects on their users. Case in point, how Natalie fell ill due to using a broken Peacock Miraculous. Or even how it's been all but confirmed at this point that Emily's use before her is what caused her to fall into a coma.
Hey, why the long face?
My mom used to have dizzy spells, just like Natalie. My father said those weren't serious either.
The Guardian can also heal Kwami, which cannot die but can get sick and be unable to properly trigger and hold a transformation. This information is seen as so important that when a Guardian passes down their role to another, they automatically get amnesia and lose all of their memories. This is further to prevent sensitive information from reaching the wrong ears. This is why Master Fu is no longer around as a voice of reason, since he passed his role down to Marinette. If the relationship between the Kwami and holder are positive, however, the Kwami will make their holder a Kwagatama in celebration of their partnership. These can be given on birthdays, anniversaries, or any other special occasion. As explained by Tiki, a Kwagatama is made when a Kwami first collects the hair of their current wielder and stores them in their bodies along with the hair of their former wielders, then afterwards for the next few months it changes it into a resin. Then, during the special occasion, they do a dance while humming in the air and they spit out the resin into the current current wielder's hands afterwards. The resin disappears, leaving the finished kwagatama. The word kwagatama is thought to be derived from the Japanese word magatama, meaning jewel. Magatama were also beads that were made in prehistoric Japan. Another interesting fact about Kwamis is that there's a pattern to how they're named. If you've noticed, each of the Kwami have at least one pair of double letters in their name. For Tiki, she has 2 Ks, Plag has 2 Gs, Pollen has 2 Ls, and so on. This also extends to Kwami outside of their box, since Leary, the Eagle Kwami of Freedom, also has 2 eyes. This is probably more so to create a sense of unity between the species and not necessarily a super important and meaningful detail. Their transformation phrases also seem to follow a pattern, only using short animal-themed phrases, usually only around 3 words each. For Trix, it's Trix let's pounce. For Pollen, it's Pollen buzz on. For Waze, it's Waze shell on, etc. Of course, there are exceptions, like with Hawkmoth's transformation phrase Nuru dark wings rise, or with Fluff's phrase Fluff clockwise. It seems like phrases are a minimum of 2 words and a maximum of 4. And while an interesting rule set to follow by, again, I don't think it bears any real significance. They were probably made to be short phrases, that way their holders could transform quickly and remember them, if anything. Like I mentioned a little earlier, the boxes also have themes. The in-show box that we see the most frequently is based off of the Chinese zodiac. While there are only 12 items on the zodiac and 19 in total in the Chinese zodiac theme box, that's because Tiki, Plag, Nuru, Trix, Dusu, and Pollen are more or less add-ons. All of the other animals in the box belong within the zodiac. Similarly, the Native American themed box has animals that are most frequently associated with indigenous people and tribes. So you of course have Leary, who is a bald eagle, but you also have other animals such as a buffalo, wolf, deer, salmon, bear, and a few others. It would be safe to assume as well that in the future, we'll also get to see other boxes that are organized under similar themes.
Now that the Miraculous of the Eagle has been found, it must return to the box it belongs to. I have come a long way to be here, so give it back with no fuss, child. I'm not in the mood.
Negative. Eagle has proved that she is a worthy Miraculous holder.
Why don't you stay here? We could create a new generation of heroes together.
Something that we've just learned rather recently as well is that the Kwami have a cousin species called Renlings. We don't know much about Renlings yet, but we do know that they're based off of southern styles of martial arts, with their color palettes heavily corresponding with the 5 elements of Wu Jing. And while Renlings seem to operate similar to Kwamis in terms of granting their human partners powers, they actually do so by transforming their holder into an animal that they represent. Kwamis only allow the holder to become an animal-themed superhero, whereas Renlings take that a step further. To be honest, I think having a Renling partner would be far more interesting. You know, because you wouldn't need to worry about the whole secret identity thing as much, since you would be entirely unrecognizable once transformed. Beyond their obvious powers as well, Kwami are able to levitate, phase through physical objects, cannot die, and can unify with other Kwami in order to combine their powers while powering a transformation. It was also revealed in the New York special that they give their user a quantum masking ability, which explains why the whole identity thing has gone on for as long as it has. Though, unfortunately for that ability, it seems that advanced forms of AI can see right through their magic, though they cannot view the Kwami themselves as they are invisible to all forms of technology. While the Kwamis are powerful, there's also a limit to what they can do for their chosen. In holders who are children, they can only allow them to use their special ability once before needing to recharge. After usage, the user has 5 minutes until they need to change back and give their Kwami food, since it takes a lot out of them. Food seems to recharge them, and they can usually go in for another full-fledged transformation right after food and a few minutes rest. However, it's shown that adults can use their powers seemingly endlessly without needing to transform back.
Burrow!
Miss me!
She doesn't need to transform back before she uses her power again?
No, because she's an adult.
Awesome! I can't wait to grow up.
It hasn't been revealed as to why that is just yet, but it can be assumed that it has something to do with the capacity of the human body, or even the strength of the bond that the partner and Kwami share. There's never been an instance where Hawkmoth or Mayora's transformation is threatening to break, even though they use their special abilities at the start of the fight. Hopefully, as we see Ladybug and Cat Noir grow stronger, we'll also see their current powers upgraded and their usage extended. intended. And as far as Kwami lore goes, that's about it. The general lore, at least. If I were to explain every power from a Kwami to you like a kumatization, this video would likely be twice as long as it is now. And while I'm not opposed to making more videos on Miraculous lore in the future, I think now is a good place to end the video. But if you'd like to see more videos on Miraculous from me, why not subscribe and hit that bell icon to stay up to date with when I upload. Special thank you to my top tier patrons: Ambrose Rothwood, Brandon Noons, The Lovely Ghosty, Kiri Feek, Lee Taylor, and Zachary Ansley. Because of people like them, I can continue to make content like this. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Have an amazing day, guys.